Well, hello. Paul here from Hashtag Sports. What's going on, everybody? Just figured I'd jump on and talk a little bit about where Buffalo is, where Buffalo's going, and how all this is ultimately going to end up. So, with that being said, thank you for joining Hashtag Sports. Make sure you are following Mr. Rogers Homes over on YouTube. Sean is our sponsor and is your Arizona relocation specialist. So we thank Sean very much for sponsoring the show as he has all season. So with that being said, we have to take a look at what's down the road for the Buffalo Bills, right? And we have to kind of talk about the elephant in the room, which is the incredible amount of players testing positive for COVID right now. I think there's been 100 players that have tested positive so far this season, and there is a massive spike going on right now as far as players testing positive. Now, mind you, right? So for the sort of the long and short of it, how is that going to impact Buffalo? Well, their next game is at 1 o'clock against Carolina, and then they go. Then they're at Foxborough on the 26th. They are back home against Atlanta January 2nd. And then they are, again, they're going to finish out the season back home against the Jets. So ultimately, you have three teams with basically losing records in the remaining, right? The Panthers are playing quarterback tango. I mean, they're just in throws. They have no idea which way is up. You do have Atlanta, who does have some weapons, but just it's been a very bad season for Atlanta. And then you have the Jets again, who are playing quarterback tango. They can't even figure out, how to score points most games. Um, a lot of people looked at the Atlanta and the Jets games as sort of coasting games, but the truth is, if Buffalo wins out, there's no way they're left out of the playoffs. But you have to start looking at what are some of the you know the weak links in the armor for Buffalo going down the rest of the season. So you look at Carolina. Carolina right now is starting Chuba Hubbard and Amir Abdullah, who is just kind of uh, been. He was with Minnesota for a while. I think it was third round pick. I actually liked Amir Abdullah coming out of college. Never could really get traction in Minnesota. And now is in Carolina as their receiving back. So we're probably going to see a pretty fair amount of Amir Abdullah, a pretty good receiving back out of the backfield. Um, Outside of that, you have DJ Moore and then whoever the hell is throwing them football. It's been bad, right? Uh, I like this. Eightfold Baca says, I'm a little scared, guys, but I'm never letting go of my Bills. Never. Yeah, this is a scary time to be a Bills fan. The plus side is that there's only 4 games left. If the Bills do win out, there's really no way they could be left out of the playoffs. So that's a huge positive. But um, looking at Carolina, I think Buffalo could and will beat Carolina pretty handily. I'm not sure there's much going on right in Carolina. This team has done an absolutely incredible job when generating turnovers, and I just don't see a scenario where Carolina plays a clean game. And that's the thing, guys. If you want to beat Buffalo, you just have to play a clean game. That's it. You play a clean game, you will win. And one thing that I thought was a really wild stat that I hadn't heard anywhere. I kind of realized it and then I mentioned it on the post game. The last game against the Patriots was the first time in Josh Allen's career where he lost a game when rushing for over 100 yards. He was previously 10-0 in that scenario. So that's a really big piece to me. Obviously Josh is dealing with a foot sprain or they're calling it a foot sprain. Some people are still saying it's a mild turf toe. Turf toe can be really nasty. If you guys have never actually looked up what turf toe is, it can actually be really, really awful. But that's not something that's just going to go away. Unfortunately, Josh is really good when on the move. And we like to see Josh moving. I don't think we need to see Josh Allen 100 yards on the ground. I don't think that's what we're looking for. I guess it's sort of a misnomer amongst fans that when you have a quarterback that runs, that supplants your running game, right? You don't need to have your running backs as involved when your quarterback is getting all those yards on the ground. That's just not true. Defensively, it is very different to plan for running back versus quarterback. If you have a quarterback that can run, um, then you have to attack that differently than if you were worried about your running back being the effective weapon. Typically, your running back's going to get a little bit more of, he's going to have a little bit of a longer runway when a team is playing for a mobile quarterback because they're going to have a linebacker back a little bit, or they're going to have a safety down a little bit to try and get to that quarterback quicker, where they wouldn't be keying on that running back. So people think that a quarterback that runs supplants the running game. It's just not true. But looking at Carolina, um, again, could have a very positive game script there. Sam Darnold might actually be back for this game. They're a better football team with Sam Darnold at quarterback. That's just the deal. Spin brings up a great one. Carolina struggles on outside runs, so Breida should have a big day. We actually saw a lot of those jet sweeps again from we saw a lot of jet sweeps again from McKenzie, or at least the looks of them. And that's something I think is really important. When you see those wide receivers running behind the line of scrimmage at snap, those are there to try and you put those on film for later time. You may only run them once or twice or not at all during a game, but you put those on film because you want to try and spread those linebackers out, right? Buffalo has been unfortunately pretty predictable, right? They've often run inside the tackles. When Josh runs, usually it's inside the tackles. When the running backs run, typically it's inside the tackles. And as much as I love Matt Breida, Breida is a really good one cut back. Moss and Singletary, they're all one cut backs. They all do the same thing. Antonio Williams on your practice squad, he's one cut back, right? Christian Wade is a no cut back because he's not even ever, he's never dressed. He is eligible, actually. They could activate him off the practice squad. He is eligible. They could have put him on IR, but they didn't because they thought he might be ready by the end of the season. So Christian Wade actually could come back this season, even though he's an international player designation. He actually could be activated, which is a little different. There's your Christian Wade for all our international folks. That's your Christian Wade reference for the whole of the episode. But by using those jet sweep motions, it does lengthen out the linebackers, which again helps you out on the interior run game. Hey, what's up? Buffalo Mania from Miami, or Buffalo Mafia from Miami. That's a dangerous place to be, man. That's a tough place to be a Bills fan down there. A tough place to be a Bills fan. And Lawrence Riley says, what about letting Antonio Williams get some run? You absolutely could, but the truth is Antonio Williams is actually a very good special teams player. He was special teams captain when he was at North Carolina. And he is your heir apparent to Taiwan Jones, which is not a crown anybody is really looking forward to giving over. Like Taiwan Jones is just fine, right? But he does not help you on offense in any way. But he's your heir apparent to Taiwan Jones. I would not expect to see Taiwan Jones next year. Antonio Williams is a very good special teams player. That's really the role that he's going to play. And when you're in a scenario where you have to win every game, I don't think you're going to see Antonio Williams anytime soon, unless there's an injury to Singletary or Moss. Even then, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they would do. Antonio Williams, again, kind of a special teams player. There it is, Dan. Christian Wade, all he does is score touchdowns, man. All he does is score touchdowns. So I guess when you're looking down the road, the Patriots game in Foxborough, dangerous place to be, right? The holiday spirit will be ripe in New England, and Buffalo has to go and steal all those presents under the tree. And I think that's where the last game is so fascinating to me, right? So you look at what happened with the Bills and the Patriots, the most recent game, and Buffalo was. And first off, Josh Allen's arm is incredible, right? The strength of his arm to be able to throw and win like that is just incredible. So we need to call that for what it is. But the problem is that you come out and you play the Bucks, and the game plan that you had against the Bucks would have been very effective against the Patriots. You run Josh, that would have been very effective against the Patriots. Unfortunately, you shot that shot now, right? So the game plan that you used against Tampa, you very well could have used against New England. Even considering the conditions, you could have run a very similar game plan. But you did already. You've already put that on film. And now you've got another game with Carolina. Again, I would hope we don't see Josh run all that much. But the fact is, you've already put Josh being, the mobile athlete that he is, proving that you're still willing to allow him to do that. Is really, one of the first times all season we've seen Josh rush like that. Um, so, and again, anytime Josh had, that many attempts for that many yards, the Bills were undefeated. Like this last Patriots game was coming an anomaly there. And it took an overtime loss to Tom Brady and the Bucks to push, Allen's win streak when, having over 10 rushing attempts. Um, which is what the real stat is. Anytime Josh had 10 or more rushing attempts, the Bills were undefeated. For his career, playoffs included. They were 10-0 going into the Tampa game. And it took an overtime loss to Tom Brady in Tampa to break that streak. So do you still see Josh being real mobile? Well, that foot sprain is going to slow him down quite a bit. So you really do need to make a concerted effort with your running backs here. And again, it's a different game plan. But you shot that shot in the Tampa game. Belichick's not going to miss that. So it's going to be really, really hard to go up against him because you're going to have to bring out things that you've never seen before. And you might see some really wonky plays in Carolina. So Buffalo ends up, getting a pretty decent lead, probably a 2.5 score, 2.5 possessions. They get up, 14, 17 points. You may start seeing some really strange stuff because that's what good football teams do is once you get up that many, you're going to start putting up some strange film, some plays you look and you go, what the hell was that? A tight end screen to Knox? What the hell was that? Like you may see weird stuff like that. And that's solely because you need to put it on tape. I guess what I'm saying is if you're looking at how this all goes, right? The Bills win out, they're in. The Bills lose to the Patriots and win the remaining games. They just need it's not even that they need a little help. They're going to get a little help. So Buffalo's still in it. You're just not going to be where you want to be. And is it possible for them to be bumped out? Mathematically speaking, it would be. But it's not something that you should really be worried about, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you here. Spin says, Josh running the ball was on film since his rookie year. Yes, that is true. But if you look at this season, go back through the entire season, we haven't seen Josh involved in the run game like that. There were a lot of times Josh would step back and take off. He actually was tackled for, I think it was a 1-yard loss, or he was tackled back at the line of scrimmage because Josh dropped back, saw the linebackers had covered the read that he was really looking for and decided to take off. And the offensive line was still in pass block mode. They're still going backwards. It was not a designed run. Josh did that a couple times in the Bucks game where he took off right away. And we haven't really seen that from Josh in a while. And certainly not this year. So you got to beat 3 of the next 4 teams. And ideally, you don't want to lose to the Patriots, right? Ideally, you don't want to lose to the Patriots. Keith Smith asks, can we beat the damn Pats? Yeah, Keith, you could beat the Pats. Here's what you do against New England. First off, you make Mac Jones throw the football. That's it. You make him throw the football. In games where Mac Jones has thrown for over 250 yards, I think the stat is, he's got a losing record. You make Mac Jones throw the football. Whatever that takes, you make Mac Jones beat you through the air. You've got a defense that generates turnovers. You put your faith in the secondary. And I know you're without Trey White. And I know that there was, a pass interference call on Dane Jackson against Gronk, and that was a legitimate pass interference call. I get that one. And I know there were other pass interference calls that weren't called that should have been. And we could bitch about that all day long. That's an easy target, right? Because everybody agrees that the game was not officiate, that there were opportunities for the officiating crew to intervene with penalties. Buffalo has, I think, only gotten one defensive holding on the secondary called for them the entire season, if I'm remembering that stat correctly. So those are great penalties to be able to receive as a team, right? So if you're the benefactor of a defensive holding in the secondary, it's great because it's automatic first down typically. Those are great penalties to get. It moves you down the field, it keeps the drive alive. And Buffalo hasn't really benefited from getting first downs via penalty this season. So while I do think there is an honest gripe there, is it the reason why they are where they are? Uh, I mean, you certainly could argue so, right? You certainly could argue so. But I think there's something for taking your fate in your own hands that you kind of have to be a little responsible for. And if you're hoping for penalties on a play, then you're not playing the game the way that as a fan, as the way we want to see it. Like when I see Josh get knocked down on a completely legal hit and then turn to the refs, that actually bothers me a lot. Right. And I understand quarterbacks are very protected folk in the NFL, but that stuff really, really, it really bothers me when you see like Diggs was running down the field on that post and the ball was in the air and he got pulled at mid route and he turns to look at the ref to put his hands up and stops tracking the ball. Like that's stuff that really is problematic to me. I hate to see that because you play the game and you let the refs call the game. And I understand that there's positioning and there's pandering and there's you got to work the refs a little bit sometimes. I get that. And there's a time and a place for that. But I feel like there's a lot of times where I'm watching Bills players look for calls. And I don't know if that's because they benefited from it last year. I guess that's a possibility because Bills definitely benefited from penalties last year and doesn't feel like that is the same. But um, you got to win. Like that's it. You got to put up enough points where you just win. That's it. Let's see here. Oh, Spin actually put in the Bills could be dropped out of the playoff seeding after this week, even with a win against Carolina. Yeah, that is true, right? So when you take a look at who the Bills are playing, and actually, Spin, did you answer that? You always did. Yeah, you always do. Good job, man. If Baltimore and Oakland win, I think the Bills are the 8th seed. At least those are the two main games. Yeah, there's some weird stuff inside the AFC that could happen. But again, remember, there's still plenty of weeks left in the season. So even if the Bills win in Carolina and they drop out of the playoff seed contention, a lot of that is just because of tiebreakers. Again, if you win out, they can't be kept out. So that's it because of the way the rest of the schedules play out. Some of these teams that are higher than Buffalo or that would be ranked ahead of Buffalo play each other. So again, they kind of eat their own there. So if the Bills do drop to the 8th seed, there's not a time to panic. It's not anything to be worried about. Those things will level themselves out by the end of the season because Buffalo really isn't playing anybody with the exception of the Pats that's ahead of them in the for the wild card or for those remaining playoff spots. Beat the Pats, beat the Jets, beat Atlanta, beat Carolina. You can't be left out of the playoffs. So I guess that's probably the main thing to pay attention to. Yeah. So I guess the one thing that we probably need to take away from here is we need to just put Josh Allen in a bubble, whatever that bubble is, because with the rise in players testing positive for COVID, um, a Josh Allen being put on the COVID list would be something you simply just can't afford, right? You can't afford it. I'm not sure this offense, while you do have a very experienced backup in Mitchell Trubisky, this offense would really struggle with biscuits. A lot of things are about this offense are about communication and chemistry. Wide receivers are adjusting routes constantly, and Josh and his receivers have to be on the same page. Honestly, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, the offense actually looked a little better without Emmanuel Sanders in it. Um, I know what that sounds like. I love Emmanuel Sanders. I think Emmanuel Sanders does a lot of great things, but I think Emmanuel Sanders is um, was taking opportunities away from Beasley, from Diggs, obviously from Gabe Davis. And I kind of like the look a little bit more without Sanders. Although I will say this again, it is a pleasure watching Emmanuel Sanders play the wide receiver position. Unfortunately, he's so good that there are times where there's better reads on the field, and Josh is just locked into Emmanuel because I think he trusts him so much. Primary focus here is if you lose players to COVID, right? Which is it's just pending, right? There's so many players dropping out right now. You have to kind of at least think about it. Um, if there were players to lose for COVID, Bills have a lot of guys on their in secondary depth. I think they're kind of a little bit interchangeable right now. Linebacker room is really thin. You couldn't lose a player there. Offensive line, they've been doing that tango all year long. So I guess what's the difference? Defensive line, again, you've been doing the tango all year long. So again, what's the difference? There's some weak spots and some strong spots where you could take it, but you got to just put your players in a bubble right now. You got to do whatever you can to protect the players. Don't expect to see them out in public doing fundraiser things at this point. Community involvement, it's probably not going to happen. Uh, you can't have anything happen inside that building right now. You just can't. You can't afford it. You got to win out. Got to win out. If you win out, you control your destiny. Now you're in the boat that you're in because you lost some stupid games. It happens. But just beat the pants off the Pats, man. Just please, God, beat the pants off the Pats. All right. I am Paul. Here's for hashtag sports. Hey, listen, Buffalo, win out. Control your destiny. Let's give it a little Sean McDermott clap. There we go. Thank you for joining me again, Paul from hashtag sports. Check out MrRogersHomes.com if you're looking to relocate to Arizona. He actually just posted a video of all the Christmas lights. Go over, give that video a view, give him a sub, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one, everybody. Oh, that reminds me. If you're a Patreon member, there's a Patreon only call that's happening right after this. I will send you guys the details on that. That'll be posted on the Patreon page. If you want to join Patreon, links in the description. Go ahead and click the link. $7.16 a month gives you full access to everything hashtag. So we're going to have a Patreon only call right after this. Have a good one, guys.